Part 33. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 321. I heard that a pair of bad elements came to the cowshed, and several cotters who assigned Mr. Su and his wife to speak with their own ears. Therefore, in addition to needing manure for work, the villagers walked around the cowshed for fear of the bad elements. The existence brings trouble to oneself. In this way, Feng Qingxiu and others are in a clean state, and they don't have to worry about the smell spreading out and being smelled when eating meat. However, in order to save Uncle Su and Aunt Su, all the white flour and eggs at home were gone, and only one piece of bacon was left. There were still dozens of kilograms of rice left, but 2 more mouths were added to the family. In addition to rice for making porridge, Feng Qingxiu usually it is cooked with whole grains. Sweet potato porridge, pumpkin porridge, dry sweet potato porridge, corn grits rice. Multi-grain pancakes, cornmeal steamed buns. Fortunately, I received letters from Huo Biding and Lu Zhang at this time, as well as letters with financial items from Cao Hui and Wang Xinru before setting off. They first thanked Feng Qingxiu in the letter, and then asked her to take care of their son. Finally, they said that they would send all the food stamps they had saved up recently, and they would ask someone to send them monthly in a few months, because they have a mission and an uncertain deadline. Both of them were in the army, and they had no children at home. Although they helped their comrades and their families, due to food shortages, they tried their best to save food and send it to the northwest, so they saved no less than 100 kilograms of food stamps, including flour stamps and coarse grain stamps. Yes, he wired another 100 yuan, and the package contained 2 cans of malted milk, 3 cans of luncheon meat, some fabrics, and both old and new military uniforms. Gangzi, your parents sent you something and money. Are you happy? Feng Qingxiu touched Song Gang's head. She often mentioned Cao Hui and Wang Xinru to Song Gang. Although Song Gang had never met them, he had a deep impression. He remembered that her parents had always been thinking about her. Because they were busy, she temporarily lived in the Lu family. Happy, Song Gang nodded his little head. He was young and often starved, resulting in nutritional deficiencies and slow growth. A 4-year-old child was about the same as a 2-year-old child. He was far less intelligent than Feng Qingyun. After confiding 2 words, he went to find Feng Qingyun. I went to play without even looking at the things on the table. I had no idea what these things meant. Feng Qingxiu smiled, put it away, and opened a can of lunch meat for everyone to enjoy at noon. Wow, we are all honored by Gangzi. Several children were beaming and using their chopsticks very quickly. The food stamps sent by Cao Hui and Wang Xinru greatly eased the family's food pressure. She asked Guan Cheng and Lu Tianjun to go to the city with money and tickets and buy finished grain directly. When cooking, she would take out a little grain from the space and mix it with it. A small half of the bowl of noodles was from the space. The family can't see it at all. It not only fills the family's stomach, but also slows down the consumption of food at home. Unlike other families, she ensures that her family has enough to eat even during the winter break. Old and young, it is difficult to stay healthy if they don't have enough to eat. It is not quite correct to say that it is winter slack, because Wang Zhenqiu arranged some strong laborers to dig rivers, and also asked the captains of each production team to arrange other male and female laborers to fertilize the crops, that is, to transport the manure accumulated in the cowshed to the ground and spread it thinly and evenly. Sprinkle to coat. Father Lu, Uncle Su, and Aunt Su all had to work. In order to earn work points, Lu Tianjun and Guan Cheng also worked hard. Even in winter, the area around the cowshed smells bad. Amid the stench, many pot-bellied women smashed the ice formed by the feces and shoveled the feces onto the car one by one. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 322. In the entire Wanglu Brigade, Except for those who like to eat and are lazy, there are few who are idle. Feng Qingxiu and Wang Jiao were both included in this group, because the two sisters were so delicate that they didn't even work together. There were many people who were envious of them, many who were jealous, and many who were ridiculed. If they don't have such a good life, they will gossip, Wang Jiao came to Feng Qingxiu and said while eating melon seeds. The people who gossiped about them behind their backs were all women, and they were women with bad luck. Feng Qingxiu smiled, we really didn't go out to work. In everyone's eyes, not working is a sign of laziness. Wang Jiao said very matter-of-factly, I have Yu Ejin to support me, and I have a reason not to work. Why are they so talkative? It's not like I didn't work when the farm was busy. Besides, you have a big belly now, so you don't have to work, it's normal. She touched Feng Qingxiu's belly and exclaimed, the belly is so big. Is it a boy or a girl? I don't know either. Feng Qingxiu's medical skills have not been refined enough to identify men and women by taking pulses, and the current hospital does not have advanced B ultrasound technology to identify gender, but she doesn't care at all. She puts down the swaddling clothes she is making and looks at her face. Her face was full of maternal tenderness, and she said with a smile, whether it's a boy or a girl, they are Lu Zhang and I's treasure, there is no difference. Wang Jiao said, how is it possible that there is no difference? A boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. If they were the same, there would be no distinction between male and female. Otherwise, how could there be so many baby girls who died abnormally? In fact, I can't understand it, but there are so many. Everyone does this. How long have I been married? Yu Ejin's mother stares at my belly every day, thinking that I don't know what she's thinking. Feng Qingxiu shook her head, there was nothing she could do about this situation. Therefore, the imbalance between men and women in the 21st century has caused many parents to be unable to marry their daughters-in-law, and this is entirely their own fault. There are many bachelors nowadays. Regardless of natural disasters or man-made disasters, girls are always the first to be given up. There are more and more men who survive. If there are no corresponding girls to marry them, they will naturally become bachelors. The Kahua Brigade was poor and had many bachelors, while the Wanglu Brigade was rich and had more than half of its bachelors, and now they have become popular. I heard that many girls from other production brigades want to marry into our Wanglu. Wang Jiao said enthusiastically, I know of several of them, and Yu Ejin's mother is looking for a partner for her niece. Feng Qingxiu was not interested in these. Cousin, the Chinese New Year is coming soon. Has the supply of non-staple food for cousin-in-law increased? Mentioning this, Wang Jiao immediately smiled and said, of course, the supply of non-staple food will be increased every mid-autumn festival and spring festival. Chickens, ducks, and geese will only appear in these two seasons, and not at all in normal times. Do you want to buy anything? I'll tell Yu Ejin and ask him in advance. Reserved. Feng Qingxiu was about to say that she didn't have the corresponding ticket when she heard the postman's voice coming from outside. Did Lu Zhang send you something? Wang Jiao jumped up, even more excited than she was. Compared with Wang Jiao, who ran out in 3 steps, Feng Qingxiu walked more smoothly and calmly. She took the 2 large packages and several letters from the postman and said, Comrade Feng Qingxiu, you're the letter and things are here. Thank you, Comrade He Hai. Because the postman often comes to deliver letters and packages, everyone is familiar with them. He Hai smiled and said, this is what we should do, you're welcome. Okay, I'm leaving, there are still letters to send. Yesterday, the naughty boy got up at 12 o'clock in the middle of the night to have fun. He was so active until 4 o'clock, and we couldn't rest, so we got up late and burst into tears. Oh, you are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 323. The package came from northeast China and Inner Mongolia and was not from Lujiang, so Wang Jiao had no intention of teasing Feng Qingxiu. Feng Qingxiu felt very comfortable in her heart. No matter what Lu Jiang's comrades sent, she didn't want to be forced to open it. Raising her hand to look at her watch, Wang Jiao said in surprise, "It's already 11 o'clock, I have to go home." "Cousin, you don't have to cook, so why go home? Eat at my house for lunch." Feng Qingxiu politely persuaded her to stay. Wang Jiao waved her hand, "I'll go to my mother's house and help her cook the pot, so that if I stay for dinner, my father won't say that I eat and drink for free. It's so stinky around your house, don't eat anything delicious in your mouth, it's all tasteless, so I won't keep it." Because she eats at her parents' house and saves a lot of food brought to her husband's house, her parents-in-law don't care whether she does housework or not. Watching Wang Jiao's back fade away, Feng Qingxiu shook her head and went back to the house to open letters and packages. As expected, it was sent by Comrade Lu Jiang. The things they sent before were all saved from last year, but this time they are this year's prey and specialties. The wild animals in autumn and winter are very fat, so they hunted a lot in private, but they hid them and did not dare to eat them. Especially Hu Ping, who lives in the core, is afraid that the scent will spread and people will smell it, and report them for poaching socialist corners. However, the food Feng Qingxiu sent them is more practical. Zhou Dingguo, his comrade in arms in Inner Mongolia, was fine. They lived on the grassland and rode horseback all day and night without meeting another person. In addition, Hu Ping sent some mink skins, some deer antlers and 2 wild ginseng, while Zhou Dingguo sent some old sheep skins and 2 wolf skins, saying they would make winter clothes for Feng Qingxiu and her family. Feng Qingxiu hurriedly took out some supplies from the space and mixed them in, and the quantity immediately doubled. At that time, she traveled all over the world and collected countless specialties from various places, including northeast China and Inner Mongolia. However, she did not plan to use it all at once for her family to eat. Instead, she would make a meal of meat and vegetables for 3 or 4 days to avoid being discovered by others, as she had gained weight due to eating too much oil and water. She did not give it to her relatives and friends, for fear of causing trouble. After experiencing the criticism of Uncle Su and Aunt Su, she became more low-key and cautious. Nowadays, she wears the clothes and shoes she had before her wedding. These clothes have been worn in front of others, so when she wears them now, everyone knows whether they are new ones, even though they look new. Moreover, the clothes of the rest of the Lu family were all patched one after another. If there were no patches, she would also put 2 patches on them, trying to hide them from everyone. In front of others, Uncle Su and Aunt Su did not interact with Feng Qingxiu and the others. Father Lu agreed very much. When Ajiang was at home before, when you got married, you were just as public as you were. No matter how depressed you are in the future, you will be the same. Our family has Ajiang's salary, who would believe that our family lives a poor life, Feng Qingxiu said with a smile. Then don't irritate people's eyes, Father Lu said, and then looked around the table. Do you know why people like us are in this situation? Except for people who deserve their crimes, everything else is caused by 2 words, that is, hatred of the rich. It's hard for the peasants to stand up and take charge of their own affairs, but of course it's not good for us. Jealousy is a disease that has not been cured since ancient times. Uncle Su nodded and said, Brother is right, that's what it is. When we are down and out and live a miserable life, then they will be happy and feel comfortable, so they won't target us. Feng Qingxiu sighed and said nothing. Isn't this the reason for many situations a few years later? Therefore, I must change my previous lavish behavior. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 324. First, Lu Jiang's salary and food stamps were used to support the families of the fallen comrades in the name of the army. What happened to Song Gang reminded Lu Jiang. After Mr. Ye told Lu Jiang, even though Feng Qingxiu never complained about Lu Jiang's troublemaking behavior in the letter, Lu Jiang still wrote to her in the letter. He was full of apologies, saying that he had not thought it through well, and immediately came up with the above remedy. He sent it directly from the army and no longer left any information about himself and his wife. He still pitied the families of his comrades, and Feng Qingxiu had no objection to this. Secondly, when Feng Qingxiu went to the black market, she no longer exchanged food for jewelry and antiques with people, but spent money. If you spend your own money to buy jewelry and antiques that cannot be exchanged at the bank, the owner can use the money to buy grain on the black market. After all, the vast majority of grain sellers are old farmers in the countryside. And those people had to exchange jewelry and antiques for food, wasn't it because they couldn't sell them? Only when trading supplies with comrades, personal information cannot be concealed. Fortunately, most of them do not know each other. Feeling the sincerity of his comrades, Feng Qingxiu took advantage of the clear weather and made the road easier. Feng Qingxiu went to the city alone on the pretext of asking Wu Zheng to check his pulse. She dressed up in disguise and sent them some coarse and fine grains respectively. After thinking about it, she sent some after making cotton, brown sugar and salt. I also sent some modified medicine for chilblains and bruises. With dried meat, less food is eaten, so there is no food loss. Feng Qingxiu doesn't help people casually anymore. She has a big belly and goes out less often, so she sees less poor people. She can't see but doesn't feel guilty. In the Wanglu brigade, she just puts on a good show. There are many people in the family but there is not enough food to eat, and they often sigh in front of others. As time goes by, everyone knows that their family's life is not easy. That's what he said, but on the morning of Xiaonian, Feng Qingxiu opened the door and almost stepped on the person at the door. A young man collapsed at the door of his house. His clothes were thin and tattered, covered with weather and dust. He held a broken bowl in one hand and knocked on the door with the other. It seemed that he fainted before he even knocked on the door. It snowed a little in the middle of the night, and a thin layer fell on him. Tianjun, Aiken, come quickly. Feng Qingxiu tried his breathing, which was extremely weak, and then touched his heart. He still felt his heartbeat and residual heat. He hurriedly asked his nephew to come over and carried him to the east side room. He first drank a few mouthfuls of hot water, and then rubbed his heart vigorously with wine and hands and feet, finally saving his life. When the young man woke up, he saw Feng Qingxiu standing next to the bed. Although she was dressed in simple clothes, she had plump skin and long eyebrows. She looked like the most beautiful woman in the Republic of China, which was eye-catching. He immediately opened his eyes wide and stared blankly at Feng Qingxiu. You and I. Hey, are you awake? Lu Tianjun stretched out his hand and shook it in front of him, then spread his fingers. What day is this? 5. After answering this childish question, the young man tried to sit up, but was unable to do so. He lay on his back on the bed with a very depressed expression. Guancheng brought a bowl of brown rice porridge to him and said, "Eat something first." He also handed him a cornmeal steamed bun. The young man didn't know where he got the strength to sit up, took the bowl and drank it all in one breath. He wolfed down the cornbread and burped while saying, "He's the Red Army. Thank you for saving me. Thank you very much." As he spoke, he did not forget to hold his fists in front of them as a salute. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 325. After listening to He Hongzhen's words and watching his actions, Lu Tianjun raised his eyebrows and looked at Guancheng. Then, he turned to He Hongzhen and asked, "Comrade He Hongzhen, why did you show up at our door? Do you know that if something happens to you, our family will be involved?" Feng Qingxiu did not stop her nephew's question, she also had this question. He Hongzhen scratched his head in embarrassment and said without any concealment, Oh, no, I went to Shanghai to join my relatives. When I passed by this place, the weather would be bad. I think your house is a new house with new courtyard walls. Life is the conditions must be good, so I just wanted to knock on the door to stay overnight and ask for hot food and hot water, but I didn't know that before I even knocked on the door, I fainted from hunger. Even when he was begging for food, he had to be selective. He would not go to those dilapidated houses and courtyards, because he knew that the life of such a family must be bad, and there was no need for him to waste other people's life-saving food. Hung Jun burst into tears of gratitude when he said this, holding Lu Tianjun who was closest to him with both hands. Little brother, thank you very much, thank you very much. If you don't save me, I will either starve to death or freeze to death. There are so many good people in the world. While begging along the way, I inevitably encountered people who called me a debt collector, but there were many people who were willing to give me half a bowl of hot soup, which is why I persisted from my hometown to come here. Thank you, I am truly grateful. I will definitely repay you in the future. It turned out that they were passing by to visit relatives, not looking for trouble. Not to mention Lu Tianjun and Guan Cheng, even Feng Qingxiu breathed a sigh of relief. After experiencing what Uncle Su and Aunt Su had experienced, they were all afraid of getting into trouble. It wouldn't matter if their family background was good, but the Lu family's family background was not good. Now they all live under the blessing of Feng Qingxiu. Their family background follows that of their father but not their husband, so the Feng Qingxiu sisters are still poor farmers with good roots. That's it, comrade then you can rest in my nephew's house before going on the road. After Feng Qingxiu finished speaking, she said to Lu Tianwan and Guan Cheng, it's snowing again today, and it looks like it will get heavier and heavier. Big, just stay at home and don't go out. Lu Tianjun and Guan Cheng nodded at the same time. Lu Zhang was not at home, and Feng Qingxiu strictly abided by the differences between men and women and was unwilling to say anything about it. Hung Jun was very discerning and knowledgeable. He got out of bed and said, no, I have to hit the road while the snow is light. Otherwise, if the snow is heavy, I won't be able to leave. Feng Qingxiu didn't hold back, and thought for a while, since you are in a hurry to get on the road, let's lend you 5 yuan. Hung Jun was stunned for a moment, then he was ecstatic. Comrade, are you really willing to lend me money? If he had money, he could take a train to Shanghai and free up his 2 legs that had no strength to walk like noodles. Feng Qingxiu nodded, you can leave after dinner. I'll ask our team leader to open a letter of introduction for you. Take the letter of introduction to buy tickets. Although the current prices are very low, the price of train tickets is very high. So most people are basically unwilling to travel far away unless it is a matter of life or death, and many people who work in distant places, such as third-line workers in the military, spend their wages on tickets. The fare to Shanghai is about 2 yuan and 10 cents. Feng Qingxiu remembered it at a glance when she bought the ticket before. Thank you, I'm so grateful, Hung Jun is not an ungrateful person. Of course, he knows that this is of great benefit to him and is his only way out, so as not to beg for food all the way and make others dislike him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 326. Feng Qingxiu moved quickly and went to Wang Zhenqiu to write a letter of introduction. Hung Jun's origin is unknown, and he is a young man of the right age. He should be dismissed as soon as possible to avoid rumors. After asking for the reason, Wang Zhenqiu wrote and stamped his seal and said, well, natural and man-made disasters have been happening for so many years. How can we not see dozens or hundreds of people fleeing for food to come to our production brigade? Today, they are just passing by. Just get used to it. After finishing speaking, he paused for a moment and said to himself, "He Hung Jun, this name sounds familiar." "Uncle, do you know him?" Feng Qingxiu couldn't help but ask more. "I can't remember." Wang Zhenqiu shook his head. "As people get older, their memory deteriorates." Miao Fengqin next to her pursed her lips. As soon as she heard the name He Hung Jun, she thought she had heard it somewhere. Now she remembered it. When Wang Jiao wanted to marry Lu Zhang, she muttered, "What happened to Zhang Yuejin and He Hung Jun?" Because Zhang Yuejin was an outstanding young man in Wang Lu's brigade and was mentioned to Wang Jiao before Wang Zhenqiu's choice of son-in-law, Miao Fengqin didn't find it strange, but she was very unfamiliar with the name He Hung Jun. At that time, she wanted to ask her daughter, but she was angry with her. Later, when her daughter ran away from home and got beaten up and lost that memory, she kept the name He Hung Jun in her heart. Later, she secretly paid attention and found that there were no Red Army people nearby or near her parents' home, and she was completely relieved. It had been so long that she thought she would never hear the name He Hung Jun, but she didn't expect that he actually appeared. It's best to send him off, and send him off quickly to avoid any complications. Stop being so long-winded, hurry up and write the letter of introduction to Xiaoxiu and take it back, Miao Fengqin urged. In front of her niece, Miao Fengqin certainly didn't want to mention her daughter's past, not to mention that He Hung Jun should have left as soon as he got the letter of introduction. There was no need to cause all kinds of troubles that were difficult to solve because of his talkativeness. Wang Zhenqiu said angrily, I know, why bother? Letters of introduction cannot be written in one stroke." When she didn't get an answer, Feng Qingxiu didn't take it to heart. When she got home, she handed the letter of introduction and $5 to He Hung Jun. "Thank you, Comrade Feng." During the time when Feng Qingxiu went out, He Hung Jun already knew that their family was a family member of the military. The surprise when he woke up was immediately suppressed in his heart, and only gratitude filled his face. "You're welcome, we're just helping each other." Having said that, Feng Qingxiu left him to have breakfast to let Father Lu know about such a person. Uncle Su and Aunt Su were afraid of causing trouble for them, so they didn't come over to eat when they knew there were outsiders. Instead, they cooked some sweet potato porridge on the stove in the cowshed. Anyway, they had lauotu pancakes and pickles prepared by Feng Qingxiu. The Lu family's morning meal was not rich, with brown rice porridge, multi-grain steamed buns, fried pickles, radish beans and other home-cooked meals. Mr. Lu is an old man, and he revealed the origin of He Hung Jun in just a few words at the dinner table. He is from the capital, has no parents at home, and is not tolerated by his brother and sister-in-law, so he plans to go to Shanghai to visit his relatives. He has an aunt in Shanghai who has no children. As long as he provides for her in her old age, he will have a place to live. After dinner, Father Lu asked Feng Qingxiu to bring him a stack of pancakes, some steamed buns, and pickles to eat on the road. So, He Hung Jun left with gratitude. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 327. After He Hung Jun left, Father Lu said to Feng Qingxiu, "This person is ambitious and capable, and he is definitely not a thing in the pool." "Dad, you can even see this?" "Where did you see it?" Feng Qingxiu was curious. "Isn't He Hung Jun just an ordinary young man who passed by to visit relatives and was in a very poor condition? Both appearance and temperament are ordinary." Lu Tianjun and Guan Cheng were both very young. They looked at Father Lu with question marks in their eyes. "Yes, how did you tell?" Father Lu smiled and said, "After the death of his parents, he was not tolerated by his brother and sister-in-law. He left home decisively instead of staying in front of his brother and sister-in-law. This shows that this person is extremely decisive and courageous. People who leave their hometown are humble, and many people would rather freeze and starve to death at home. He is unwilling to go out to find a way out. He did not choose to wait for death, which shows that he is very courageous. Moreover, he chose to live in Shanghai as a childless ant, which shows that he is very smart and ambitious. Where is Shanghai to settle? The benefits brought by it are too many. He is willing to provide for his aunt to live in her old age in exchange for a place to live, which shows that he understands the exchange of equal value and understands how to grasp the weakness of people's hearts. Feng Qingxiu was thoughtful, and Lu Tianjun and Guancheng also nodded. They all understood that Father Lu was teaching them how to recognize people. Yes, he is very smart. I remembered what he said. He said that when begging for food, he always picks people whose houses and yards look good because the chance of getting food is high. Guancheng suddenly said. Lu Tianjun continued, it's really not simple. There are thousands of kinds of people in the world. When you meet them for the first time, you don't know who is good and who is evil. You don't know whether the person you save will value love and justice or repay kindness with enmity, whether he will become a prosperous person or continue to be in decline, so you have to be careful when dealing with people. Having said this, Father Lu took the enamel vat handed over by Guancheng and took a sip of hot water. It is better to form a good relationship than to form a grudge. If you save a kind and righteous person, he will remember your kindness no matter whether he is prosperous or not in the future. Although a ruthless and righteous person may not be willing to do so after he is prosperous. If you mention your poor past, you treat him like a normal person instead of ridiculing him. Even if he doesn't repay kindness, he won't repay kindness with hatred. The cycle of cause and effect: if there is a cause, there will be a result. If you sow good deeds, you will bear good results. You can't guarantee that you will be prosperous today, and you can't guarantee that others will be miserable today. Life is unpredictable, and things will change from 30 years to the east and 30 years to the west. After Lu Tianjun heard this, he asked, do bad people also need to be saved? Unless he dies on the spot, there is no way he can stand up. Father Lu said in a low voice, it is better to offend a gentleman than a villain. Do you think this sentence was born for no reason? No, this is the summary of the sages of the past. Real knowledge and insight. If you offend a gentleman, you will not bring trouble to yourself. A gentleman is magnanimous and does not care about trivial matters. The villain is different. Most villains are narrow-minded and will retaliate. Once they turn around, they will be dealt with first. There are no exceptions for those who offend themselves. Feng Qingxiu strongly agrees with this, so we must be kind to others everywhere, because none of us can predict what will happen in the future. Of course, when doing good, you must do it according to your ability and pay attention to propriety while ensuring your own safety. Father Lu nodded, no matter whether the Red Army is good or bad, saving him today will be beneficial to us. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 328. $5 and a little food are enough to buy someone not to hold grudges. As for repayment, there is no need to think about it if you show kindness without expecting it in return. Then, Father Lu said again, we have the conditions. When giving favors, you must pay attention to your attitude and consider the other person's self-esteem. Don't show a face of giving. Be kind and approachable. It is better to say that you will lend it to them than to lend it to them, not to mention giving it to them. Some people pride themselves on their integrity, and even if they are down and out, they are not willing to eat the food that comes their way. Feng Qingxiu, Guancheng, and Lu Tianjun all expressed their acceptance and secretly remembered that they did not care whether they rescued good people or bad people, as long as the people they rescued must not bring danger to their own families. Fortunately, it was snowing when He Hung Jun came and left, so it didn't cause the slightest disturbance in the Wanglu brigade. The Lu family's life returned to peace. It's snowing, it's a small year again. All the laborers don't have to work, they can finally take a breather, and because there are enough rations this year, there is no need to worry about going hungry. Everyone is smiling. At this moment, Wang Jiao jumped up and down to find Feng Qingxiu. Zioxiu, Zioxiu, Wang Jiao shouted outside the door. After receiving Feng Qingxiu's response, she ran into the house and lowered her voice, "I'll tell you some good news." Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "What's the good news?" "I'm all ears. My Yuejin said that there will be beef for sale at the grocery store tomorrow. Do you want it? If you want it, I will let him keep it." "Beef?" Feng Qingxiu's eyes lit up, then dimmed. "Of course I want it. Without pork, it would be nice to have beef for the new year. But, I don't have any meat tickets in my hand." Wang Jiao giggled, "No ticket required, only 50 cents per pound. No need to vote. Is there such a good thing? Beef and mutton are cheaper than pork. Feng Qingxiu knows that. Cows are working animals and are more noble than people. It is better to starve people to death than to starve cows to death. This is the reason for many production brigades. There is a consensus that beef is rarely seen unless it is a cow that has died of illness. Mutton is more lean meat and less fat, and tastes tangy and not fragrant, so the price is low. Both are 50 cents per catty, while pork is 72 cents per catty. It's a good thing for us, but not for others." Wang Jiao lowered her voice, "I heard that the snow was too heavy and the cow sheet collapsed. The calf was trapped in the snow house. Liang Kaduozi broke both of his legs and couldn't be cured. He was still lame and unable to work, so he was sold by the production team to the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. The Supply and Marketing Cooperative sent him to the city to be responsible for slaughtering and selling. Inside, no tickets are required. Several agencies and people who use the back door have already reserved the parts they want." Feng Qingxiu quickly took out $10 and stuffed it into Wang Jiao's hand. "Cousin, I'm sorry to trouble my cousin-in-law. You must leave some good meat for us." 20 kilograms, Wang Jiao was startled. No, we can't divide that much. Many people are watching. At most, Yuejin can get 5 or 6 kilograms of meat for my mother's family and your family. Too much will cause dissatisfaction." Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "Cousin, take it first, and get as much as you can for us." Wang Jiao then accepted the money. "Okay, I'll go back and tell him. He has to go back to the city in the afternoon and won't come back until he sells the meat tomorrow." On the evening of the next day, she sent beef to her parents' family and the Lu family. The Wang family received 5 kilograms of beef belly meat, a beef leg bone, and a little butter, while the Lu family received 6 kilograms of tendon meat and a beef leg bone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 329. Seeing the meat, the children were so happy that they covered their mouths tightly, fearing that their excited screams would be heard. Lu Tianjun and Guancheng didn't need Feng Qingxiu to do anything. They quickly boiled a pot of hot water, washed the beef and beef leg bones separately, divided the beef into 7 or 8 pieces, and chopped the beef leg bones into 3 pieces with an axe. The 2 children lit the stove and cooked the pot at night, stewing the beef and beef bones. Boil it over high heat, skim off the foam, and simmer it over low heat. The strong aroma was fragrant, and no one passed by outside, so naturally no one knew or noticed it. Tomorrow morning, you will have soup to drink and meat to eat. Feng Qingxiu sent the children back to sleep, and she stayed in front of the stove, studying Lin Qiazai's works while watching the fire in the stove. She recently sorted out the books in the space and found all of Lin Qiazai's works, which was a pleasant surprise. When she collected books from all aspects, she didn't have time to read many of them, so she bought them all and put them in the space. Lin Qiazai was a pioneer in obstetrics and gynecology in her country and a medical scientist. Her works contain her experience, her research results, etc., which are very meaningful for Feng Qingxiu now. Because she has the most contact with mothers and babies. Feng Qingxiu rubbed her eyes after reading until her eyes were sore and looked at the time. It was 10 o'clock. She turned off the fire, put the sand basin upside down on the lid of the pot, washed her hands and face, soaked her feet, ate a bowl of rock sugar bird's nest that was stored in the space after stewing, brushed her teeth, tidied up and went to sleep at 10:30. When she woke up, it was 6 o'clock. Adequate sleep and rich nutrition made her very energetic. She was in good spirits and her skin was in good condition. She was white and rosy and radiant. It was still dark and the children were all asleep. Feng Qingxiu got up quietly to wash, drink water, and cook. On the way, she did not forget to drink a cup of hot milk and eat a handful of red dates, walnuts, and fruits. The soup in the pot had solidified into a layer of snow-white oil, sealing the soup. Feng Qingxiu knocked open the oil seal, took out the bones and meat and put them in a vegetable bowl beside. There was a lot of soup in the pot, so she took a piece of meat from the bowl and put it on the chopping board, then scooped half of the soup from the pot and poured it into the bowl. The remaining soup boiled, and when the family got up, they put in the rolled black noodles and chopped green onions and cabbage leaves. When the noodles were almost cooked, they added the sliced beef slices, and the fragrant beef noodles were ready. Thinking about having meat to eat, the children got up half an hour earlier than usual, washed their faces and brushed their teeth in a hurry, and each of them appeared in the kitchen with their own bowls, staring at the hot pot eagerly. The old and young in the family each had a big bowl of noodles with soup, but Feng Qingxiu only drank a bowl of soup. Beef is hot in nature, and drinking a bowl of soup on a cold day warms the whole body. Later, Feng Qingxiu heard from Wang Jiao that several families also stewed meat soup at night, and ate it secretly before other families got up or after they fell asleep at night, hiding it during the day, for fear that the smell of meat would spread to the neighbors and people would smell it and report them for hedonism. Beef bones are very durable, and they are boiled once every night. At first, the soup is snow-white and still fragrant, but later it becomes clear water. At this time, Wang Zhenqiu announced to kill pigs. The words "kill pigs" fell, and the whole production team was boiling. Kill pigs and eat meat. Many families have not tasted meat for several years. Only some strong laborers who participated in the weddings of Lu Zhang and Wang Jiao can eat meat. So, when they heard about killing pigs, men, women, old and young all expressed their willingness to go and help. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 330. The Wanglu Brigade also has mission pigs, without exception. The chickens, ducks, fish, pigs, and sheep in the city's grocery stores are all raised by farmers and then handed over. To be on the safe side, the Wanglu Brigade relied on sufficient feed and grain, and men, women, old and young were willing to hunt pigweed to earn work points in their free time, so they raised 2 more piglets. Fortunately, although one died during the process, the other 3 piglets were all thriving. Grown up. 2 task pigs have been handed over, and the production brigade has another pig, weighing about 120 kilograms. After the news spread, Feng Qingxiu looked at the calendar and found that Wang Zhenqiu had decided to kill the pig on New Year's Eve, and the location was set on the open space in front of the branch secretary's office. Why did she choose such a day and such a place? Feng Qingxiu said she didn't understand and went to take a look. Early in the morning, before dawn, the open space became busy in full swing. Many people gathered in the open space. Everyone had excited smiles on their faces, and the children kept wiping the saliva from the corners of their mouths. After building the stove, pulling firewood, setting up a large pot, and heating water, a few strong laborers carried a black pig tied up to the open space. Miao Fengqin led many women to handle the large piles of cabbage, radish, potatoes, pickled cabbage, and red pepper. The food was collected by head from each household, washed, cut, and filled into large pots one after another. As if he expected his fate, The black pig let out a miserable cry. Feng Qingxiu was startled by the sudden scream. She stretched out her hand to caress her chest and said to the children at home, "The younger ones are playing here. The older ones go home and help me. Don't watch the fun. You can't stop preparing your own meals just because the production team is killing the New Year pig." Guan Cheng and Lu Tianjun immediately followed back. "I received a letter from Lu Zhang 2 days ago." Feng Qingxiu went to the city to send a letter and took a trip alone. She brought back a lot of things, including white flour and a piece of pork, which she chopped into stuffing and used to make dumplings. There are many people at home and the weather is cold, so the dumplings can be frozen. She prepared 5 kinds of fillings: pork and green onion stuffing, leek yolk and egg stuffing, oily cabbage stuffing, pumpkin stuffing, sauerkraut stuffing. Father Lu, Uncle Su, and Aunt Su came to help. The entire production brigade gathered at the pig killing site, and no one paid attention to whether the second elder came in or out of the Lu family. After the dumplings were wrapped and frozen, they were put into a sand jar piled with ice and snow outside. Several children rushed back, and loud voices came in before anyone entered the door, "Hurry up and get a bowl to divide the meat." It turns out that after the New Year pig is slaughtered, it is put into the pot directly. 4 large pots are used to cook bone soup, and pig offal, pork, and pig blood are stewed in one pot. There is so much meat, of course there are more than one pot, and several large pots are used to stew the meat. There are more vegetables than meat, but it is fragrant and rich. The fragrance filled the air. When Feng Qingxiu's family arrived, there was already a long queue in front of the stove. Everyone, regardless of gender, old or young, was carrying a bowl. Wang Zhenqiu and the production team leaders stood in front of the pot with spoons, responsible for serving food to the villagers. In the bowl, each person has a large spoonful. Whether this spoonful has more meat or vegetables and soup all depends on luck. Feng Qingxiu did not deliberately line up in the queue that Wang Zhenqiu and Wang Dachun were responsible for, but the person who served her the meat did not dare to be careless at all. A full spoon was divided into 7 parts meat and 3 parts dishes, and very little soup. The meat is at the bottom and the vegetables are on top. It's not impressive at all. After receiving the meat, one person can also receive a large bowl of bone soup. Everyone had a share, except Uncle Su and Aunt Su. Father Lu and they both had the good sense not to be present. My mother said that when she was a child, my grandfather was responsible for butchering pigs, so she always got half a bowl of meat. This was in the late 1960s. The conditions in our village are better. There are many sweet potatoes in the mountains. My dad is basically not hungry, but now he is annoyed when he sees sweet potato rice. My dad is the captain, 11 yat. In fact, my mother was fighting for her life during a famine. She was born on the way to escape famine and beg for food.